it's not about you, it's about the customer. If you put the time and the proper attention with each and every customer, there's no way you cannot win.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Golden Wrench Podcast, where I get to talk to anybody and everybody I want to talk to about when it comes to the fixed ops side of the business. Now, I got an amazing guest for you today. We're talking about a wealth of experience and knowledge, and I am so excited to get into some crazy great topics. But hey, we can't do great content like this without our sponsor. And here's a quick message from our sponsor.
For years, I've been saying that you have to process your way to profitability, and no one knows that better than the folks at Repair 360. You all know how important it is to have a fast, streamlined used car reconditioning process. Remember, time kills profit. Getting a used car frontline ready in less time while providing transparent communication between departments is what Repair 360 is all about. With Repair 360's automated used car recon manager, you will drive recon times down while giving sales the visibility they need to stop complaining. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that part. Anyways, you have to check out their website at repair360.com and see how they can revolutionize your reconditioning process.
All right, guys, I'm telling you, a wealth of knowledge. I'm serious, a wealth of knowledge. I have the one, the only, the oh so famous Mike Vogel with me. Mike, how you doing?
Doing great, Jason. Thanks for inviting me on today. I'm excited to share with you and share some great topics.
Man, I am just excited to pick your brain, man. Like, I just know that you've been in the business for a long time. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm not just talking about the movie. And you have some great strategies and amazing insights to share with our audience. So I am very, very happy that you're able to take the time to come chat with me. Hey, Mike, when I kick off these podcasts, I like to ask everyone for their origin story. Because maybe it's a little selfish. I'm always generally interested to find out how people just kind of got into the business. So for everybody out there watching and listening who may not know, Mike, how did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
So, Jason, for me, I was the typical young guy. I was into cars like pretty much all of us were, but I ended up deciding college wasn't for me. I went to college for about 6 months and was trying to figure out, okay, where do I go? Ended up taking a job with Avis Rent-A-Car. Everybody knows Avis, obviously, but they had a used car operation. I grew up in New York City, in Queens. And so I became the used car porter. I worked with the sales manager there, and I had to wash cars, jumpstart cars, set up the lot, whatever he needed me to do, that's what I did. And that was my jumpstart. From there, I actually moved into car dealerships. And in New York, unlike other parts of the country, like California, where I am right now, they weren't doing on-the-spot deliveries back then. So I was the prep manager. I got all the new and used cars ready for delivery, got accessories added to them when that was a big thing back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I know I'm aging myself now, but that's okay.
I had to get that gold-plated rims, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of how I got into the business and transitioned actually when I moved to California in 1986 and discovered there wasn't a prep manager position available out here. Lucky enough to get trained by a service manager to be a service advisor. Hooked me up with a really good mentor, Ron Van Leer, who may he rest in peace. He really, really taught me well, and that's how I jump-started it as a service advisor, eventually moving into service management. And here we are today. I'm semi-retired, and I do coaching for service managers and service advisors in Southern California.
You know, it's funny. I love the fact that you say I'm like semi-retired. I feel like that's like the automotive industry.
Yes.
You know, like, once you're in, you're in. There was a short period of time, I think it was about a month, where I thought I was out of the business, and I swear it was like that episode from from The Godfather, right? It just
Sure.
sucks you right back in, right? Like there's no way of getting it out. I mean, once you got that love, you got that passion. It's just you can't get out of it. And it's funny you say Avis, because I'm surprised by how many people I've interviewed that kind of entered that in. They had a really good program back then. I mean, I know there was they did a lot of marketing. They brought a lot of people into the business that way. I know there are a few dealer owners right now listening. I know have got that actually started their way through that same Avis,
Wow.
type
That's
program. So
crazy.
it's funny. Hey, okay, so I want to get into our first topic today because this is really cool. Long-term retention strategies, with a focus on creating advocates. I love your perspective out there, but for everybody out watching, listening that don't know it, let's kick us off there. What are your kind of thoughts?
So the way I look at the business is we had JD Power start off back in I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s with their survey system. And we started talking about customer satisfaction. And despite, all the great information that was provided by surveys, we really didn't do a lot with it. And we continued to have low customer retention, unfortunately, as an industry-wide problem at a good amount of dealerships throughout the United States. Matter of fact, I'm sure most of your listeners know, but I mean, service departments, once the warranty expires, only retain 30% of their customers. So what I like to do when I'm talking to service managers and service advisors, if you help 20 customers today, would you be okay giving away 14 of them and only retaining 6 of them? And like, well, no. I said, well, that's what's happening. And we're the ones creating this. It's not the customer that wants to go away. They've actually given us a chance to work with them. So obviously customer satisfaction doesn't lead to customer retention. And nothing that we've done, we've built beautiful dealerships, we've put in Starbucks, we've put in car washes, we do complimentary multi-point inspections, we do complimentary car washes, and numerous other things, shuttle service, Ubers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of all these so-called perks that we give out. And unfortunately, that also does not lead to retaining more customers. So for me, I talked about 4 key words. And this was way back when I was running dealerships on my own with my service advisors, my technicians, my BDC. First one is we have to earn their trust. Second one is we have to show value in what we're presenting to them. Third one is we have to be as convenient as possible. And the very last one, which is the key word, is creating a wow factor whenever possible. And what I mean by a wow factor doesn't necessarily have to be anything huge. It could be something as stupid as meeting promise times, following up when we're supposed to, beating our price estimate on it. Those could be, but it also could be something like, let's get some goodwill assistance from the manufacturer. Let's get this customer a rental car. Let's detail their car. Let's give them a complimentary oil change. It could be any number of things depending on the situation.
And those things become memorable, right, Mike? I mean, those are things that kind of become memorable. I think for a lot of people out there watching and listening, it's, to your point, it's number 4 that is actually probably like the hardest one to kind of figure out. And
Actually, you know what? I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Yeah, trust is a given. I think for all of us, we all want to trust whoever we're doing business with. But value and convenience gets a little tricky as well because those words, excuse me, mean different things to different people. So unless we take the time to build a relationship with our customers and know what's important to them, how are we going to possibly address them? And I think if you want a good takeaway is sometimes we look at things on the dealership side on what's in it for us, like what hours are we going to be open? What's our pricing strategy? How are we going to get cars through the shop? really it needs to start with what's in it for the customer. Because if we don't put them first, we're never going to get the end result that we're looking for, which is repeat and referral business.
You would have loved when I was a service manager. Now I didn't get this idea. I got it from somebody who was much smarter than me,
Sure.
but he passed it down to me. I started hosting what I called little things meetings. And because of it, because if it was if it's a big thing, we usually dealt with it really quickly. You know what I mean? Like if the lights outside didn't come on during dusk, well, we usually called somebody and had it fixed pretty quick. If outside there was snow and it needed to be plowed because no one could park, well, we got stuff like that fixed. But I found it was the little things that made big differences in the experience. And since we started hosting that meeting, and I would kind of challenge my team to bring just one little thing that they wanted to change over a 2 week period, and the collectiveness of those little things. And it could be just something as simple as like, how we handed over the RO. Did we just kind of like toss it to them? No, we actually went and got envelopes and actually started putting them into the folder, something you'd almost want to kind of keep, at home or something like that. But it was little things like that. And I think that's kind of what I was kind of to help with that number 4, and also kind of to create that perception of both convenience and value. Those little things add up, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. One of the things when I go out working with advisors and service managers, we talk about the beginning and the end of the customer visit. And on the vehicle check-in, what I'd like to point out to your audience is I see too many dealerships that focus on finding damage as part of the vehicle check-in as their number one priority. First of all, in my opinion, that sends up a red flag to a customer saying they must have a problem here. They must be damaging a lot of cars that they're really concerned about finding dents and scratches on my car. But more importantly, we're not starting on a positive note. So what I teach dealerships is I call it the double walk around. The first walk around is with the customer still in the car with the engine running, with the lights on. And the service advisor should walk around, do a quick visual on the wiper blades, the tires, get to the front, make sure the turn signals are working, all the lights are working, walk around to the back, make sure all the lights are working, turn signals, make sure the brake lights are working, finish coming around. Now invite the customer out and do a normal walk around. And if you do see some damage, and note it and point it out with the customer present. The reason why we want to start there is we're accused by customers typically that we're always selling. So we're selling as soon as they arrive on the drive. We're selling through the multi-point inspection. We're starting out on a safety check that we're not charging them a penny for. We're looking out for their best interest. We're making sure that lights are working. We're making sure that the wiper blades are in good condition. Now, where it rains a lot or snows a lot, obviously dealerships do a better job. But in Southern California, where we don't get a lot of rain, I can't tell you how many customers' cars used to get serviced, and then they come back the first rain and say, my wiper blades don't work. And, talk about egg on the face. That's egg on the face. Same thing holds true when customer leaves and you see them step on their brakes and no brake light's working, or one brake light is burnt out. What kind of example are we setting for the quality of work that we're performing for them while the car is in the shop? How does that entice them to want to spend more money or keep coming back? So you talked about the little things. I consider that first walk around to be a little thing, but it also sets a real positive tone to the visit.
It really does. And, I think that's actually kind of a perfect segue kind of into the other topic that we were talking about, where relationship versus transaction selling, right? Because, when you focus on those little things, and, you really execute those little things well, you do get the opportunity to actually create a relationship
Right?
with someone, and not just it be a transaction. I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
So you're absolutely right. I think when we start out trying to find out about the customer, their concerns, how they drive the vehicle, all these little things starts breaking down the barriers. Because let's face it, I don't think we're right up there with the dentist's office as being a favorite place to visit on a regular basis. But when you talk about building relationships, we don't need to be selling. We need to put them first. And I think the best example I can give you of that is on the multi-point inspection. And I also learned this through, I was with Toyota dealerships for about 20 years. And I learned this through Toyota training. They have a thing with the multi-point inspection calling it selling the green. And if you go into the average dealership today, when the multi-point inspection gets sent to the customer and the advisor is talking about it with the customer, we're launching right into selling. We've got 4 or 5 items recommended by the technician that need attention, and we go right into, this is what your car needs, this is how much it's going to cost. So what Toyota taught us, which I thought was brilliant, is there's, let's say, 27 items on a multi-point inspection. Why not point out to the customer, you have 20 plus items on your multi-point inspection, as you can see, that are green. Your car's in great shape. Congratulations. It's such a much better attitude. And you're going to laugh, hopefully, like most of my students or advisors do when I say this. But I compare it. Can you imagine going to the doctor's office for a full checkup, and the doctor comes back to you, and all they tell you is your cholesterol is really high. We need to get it under control. We're going to put you on medication, and that's all they say. As opposed to a doctor coming back in and saying, hey, your blood work and everything came back. You're looking really healthy. There's one area we need to pay attention to, and that's your cholesterol. Which one would you prefer to hear?
Exactly. It'd definitely be the first one. No, I like this idea. I mean, it's reversing of it, but it also it has an objective, right? So we're saying that, hey, there are, let's say, hypothetical 27 green check marks to pretty much stamp your car as being, this thing's in great shape. Like you're doing a good job, right? So it's like when you reverse it and you're like, okay, there 21 things are in the green, but to get to the great position, these are the 4 or 5 things that have to be addressed, right? So it's like it's you've almost kind of created a challenge in the sense of it. But there's a little bit of psychology that goes behind it. But who doesn't want to drive a great vehicle? We all want to drive a great vehicle. So it's like, okay, well, hey, out of the 27, you're in there, but there's only 3 to make it something great.
And the thing about that too is the green is an opportunity, like when we're talking about tires and brakes, to build that trust. Because if you imagine from day one, the first visit, you're going to go 4, 5, 6, 7 visits without them needing brakes or tires. So you're going to be talking about green, 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 yellow. Now you start having the conversation. Okay, they're starting to wear. Probably by the next visit or the visit after that, you're going to need brakes or tires. Now you're being sensitive because on a lot of vehicles, brakes and tires are the first big ticket items that they receive. And not to mention that tires are a big defection point as well as retention, because we don't necessarily do a good enough job presenting tire wear and tire replacement, and that we're the authority and we can get the tires replaced for you right here rather than going down the street.
You're 100% right, and I'm also kind of glad that you brought back the word retention again, because you had mentioned something earlier, and I just wanted to kind of just really kind of highlight it for anybody out there watching and listening. All right, the stat that you gave, Mike, was about 30% of the customers will stop servicing. All right, after
No, 30% keep coming back. 70%.
70%. Guys, so if you're watching, listening, listen to this. 70% of the customers will stop servicing with you, all right, after the warranty is expired. So, is it to objective to retain or to create a relationship where you can actually turn someone into an advocate of your business? Because I actually kind of want to go down that, because I think retention is still kind of a numbers game. right? Like, okay, here's the amount of customers, here's this, right? But we talked a little bit before we started recording, Mike, about advocates. And, and I think that's, when people say like, hey, you want to create a relationship, but like, what's the byproduct of creating a relationship? You get an advocate. I mean, this is someone that's, that's going to be out there, and, if they're going to want to share that experience with them, so I think, for everyone out there, like, this is worth the time. The juice is worth the squeeze. And I want to go down a little bit more down that rabbit hole of advocacy.
Okay. So I'm gonna share a couple of stories with you if that's okay. So first one is when I was a service advisor at a Nissan dealership, I had a customer come in, and we could see the customers pulling. It was a long service drive that they had to drive down, and the other advisors had been there for quite a while, and they knew this customer, and so they would pick up the phone. They picked up the phone the first time he came in that I was there, or they ran in the shop. In other words, leaving me to greet the customer. And he was upset, and he had reason to be upset because he had come in 4 different times for a transmission problem that wasn't resolved. So I listened to him, brought out my lead technician, had them drive with it, got my service manager involved. My service manager got corporate involved with the technical assistance. And eventually, over a short period of time, we got his situation resolved. We got his transmission resolved. Now, this was back in the time when cars got serviced every 3,750 miles. He had about 22,000 miles on his car at that point, had spent nothing at the dealership where he actually bought the car as far as maintenance was concerned by that point. So he should have been 6 or 7 visits by then. I got it resolved. We became friends. And he come to find out he worked in the office building right across the street from the dealership. I mean, we couldn't have been any more convenient than that. And once we hooked up and I started taking care of him, he ended up telling all the other people that drove Nissans in that building about me and said, you got to bring your car over to him to get your car serviced because he's going to take care of you the right way. And really, that's what's becoming a customer advocate. So not only did I get him as a regular customer, but everybody else, and I don't know what the number was, but it was quite a few, it might have been 10, 15, 20 customers that became my customers because of the relationship that I built with him, and he's an advocate. Now, on the flip side, on a personal level, I became an advocate for JetBlue Airlines. Back when my parents were still alive, I flew back to New York and Florida a lot. They were very convenient. It was a hiccup on one of my trips that I won't go into the long story, but basically somebody took my garment bag. I was going to an affair. I'm like, oh, great. I'm 4 hours away from the airport and I don't have the suit that I'm supposed to wear tomorrow night. Well, JetBlue found my garment bag in Manhattan and delivered it to my hotel that night. So what could have been a nightmare turned out to be like a little blip in my travel.
Yeah, no kidding.
And there was another story to go along with that, but I've told the JetBlue story for the last 20 years. And
see how amazing that is? Like, I want to take a moment because you have told that story for 20 years.
yes,
I'm trying to stress, for anybody, for the dealers out there watching and listening right now, all right, little things like this, all right, turns people into monster advocates. Like I've been on the marketing side of the business, all right, for many, 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 many years, all right. There's not a campaign I can run in the world that would be as effective, all right, as a 20-year advocate of telling people just how amazing this company is. And I think it needs to be one of our objectives. I think retention is fine, but advocacy is a whole nother level. And it's something else. Sorry. Anyway, sorry.
I think what the goal should be, you should start out trying to make every customer an advocate for you and for the dealership. Obviously, that's not going to happen. That's not realistic. But if that's your end goal, then at least you're going to get closer to your goal than throwing a haphazard plan together. And I think where it boils down to is we end up chasing the numbers instead of chasing the customer experience. And we have to chase the numbers because we're not delivering the customer experience. So we have to find a way to pay the bills and get numbers to the bottom line. And it's kind of sad in a way. And I'm not trying to bag on the industry, but I think it's important to call it out for what it is. With the fact that we put so much focus on hours per RO and effective labor rate and gross profit percentages, when the reality is if we put that same amount of effort into driving the customer experience, the numbers typically will follow because we all spend more money where we're happiest.
Oh, no, no, 100%. I mean, look, I can guarantee you, there are places I go to do business with that I will pass by other areas I could have done business with, right? There's a tackle shop. I like to fish, right? There's a certain tackle shop. All right. I probably pass by 4 other tackle shops before I get to this particular one. All right. But they've made me an advocate. I mean, hell, I actually even wear their t-shirts sometimes,
There you
but
go.
they are so open with their knowledge and their experience. But I want to get back to kind of yours because I think what's really unique with you is what you got from JetBlue wasn't a one-off. It was a process. All right. JetBlue had a process for your situation.
Right.
Situation came up and it's like a process got activated. So there was intentionality in them creating advocates. And I think that's kind of and I want to kind of, this is a perfect segue kind of into our next topic, Mike, is, if we're going to make an objective to create advocates, well, then we need to be intentional. If we're going to be intentional, then we have to, really be intentional with our service drive processes. And this was our next topic is like service drive processes for success, right? If we process our way to advocacy, right? Because that's what happened with you and JetBlue.
Right.
Something happened. Someone had a documented process because they had people in place to get this done, right? And boom, problem happened, activated process, and now a 20-year advocate. So let's get down this service drive processes for success. Your thoughts on this?
Okay. Well, I touched on earlier about the vehicle check-in process, and I think the beginning and the end of the service visit are the most important. We can have some hiccups in the middle, and I mean, life is what it is. Things happen. Wrong part came in, parts got delayed, car didn't get done on time. There's any number of things that can happen, and obviously, how we handle those things is important. But customers are going to remember how they were treated when they arrived and when they're leaving. So for the vehicle check-in, doing the walk around, and I know this is not doable 100% of the time at every dealership because there's facility challenges, there's weather challenges, but we have to start out with an end goal of trying to do the vehicle check-in with the customer at the car. Because the reality is their car is their comfort zone. They don't want to be standing in a cubicle. They don't want to be sitting at a desk. The proper place is at their vehicle. So getting that vehicle check-in, listening to them, building that rapport, starting to build that relationship is so important with the vehicle check-in. The next part of service department processes revolves around communication follow-up. And that's where some places tend to drop the ball. We don't follow up with the customer. Phones start ringing off the hook. Everybody's checking on the status on their vehicle. And I kind of make a joke out of it, but I say, look, you have to understand the customer only visits here 2 or 3 times a year. We take a lot for granted because we work here every day. But put yourself in the customer's shoes for 1 second. The car gets written up, driven away into the big black hole, never to be seen again until they come pick it up. So the better job we do communicating, and that means being proactive. We should be contacting them before they contact us, and we should set the expectations on, I'm going to follow up with you by such and such a time, even if I don't have anything to report at that time. That's so key because now you're putting the customer at ease. Anything that we can do is to reduce their anxiety levels while their car is in our possession is a win-win. So communication follow-up is so true. We also talked about the MPI presentation. selling the green is so important. There's also part of the MPI presentation called the RIM process, which means we offer what needs to be done in priority order, related to what they came in for, anything that's an immediate concern, and last, any maintenance type item that can be done today, but it can be deferred. So you do that and you're selling the green, the MPI becomes a much positive thing. And then finally, the active delivery. I'm a true believer, first of all, in self cashiering, because I don't think we should be handing off our customers to somebody else to collect money. And then finally, reviewing the paperwork, collecting any monies that might be due, and walking them out to their car, opening their door, pulling the plastic protective coverings out in front of them so they see that we took care of their car, thanking them for their business. It's the final kiss off. So important. It's so important, and all these steps are more professional, and they give the customer a reason to not only come back, but hopefully tell other people about their experience.
Well, it's the cherry on the top, right? I mean, I mean, and also if you kind of think about it, right? Like, I mean, where else would you go where it's just like you're going to spend that much money on a transaction, and they just kind of toss you something and say, "Okay, thanks, bye." Like
There's still a lot of finger pointers out there, like the cashier's over there, your car's over there.
it's
What's
over
that?
there, go over there, it's over there.
Exactly.
It is horrible. Hey, I actually I'm going to go a little off script here, Mike, because I this has kind of been coming up as a hot topic recently because I think there's been a lot of shifts in the industry, and I'm going to throw out one more question at you because I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, But for anybody out there that is possibly thinking or considering getting into the business, all right, what advice would you share with them, Mike?
I think that the number one thing is it's not about you, it's about the customer. If you put the time and the proper attention with each and every customer, there's no way you cannot win. I mean, I kind of joke when I became a service advisor, I don't consider myself to be a good salesperson, but yet I became successful because people trusted me. I wrote service in an era where we didn't have texting, cell phones, emails. It was try to get a hold of them at their office phone or their home phone, or we were kind of dead in the water. But there's an expression in the industry that's still used. I had my share of key tossers because I built that relationship. I mean, it even came to a point. When you build relationships, people will trust you to spend their money. Because they know that you're not going to abuse it, you're not going to steal from them. And the bottom line is, as a service advisor, the effort in, and this probably applies to any job, but the effort you put into it is going to net you the results. And when I mean effort, I mean building those relationships, not selling. Selling is secondary, in my opinion.
That's right. Creating those advocates. Mike, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today because this has been a lot of fun. Hey, for everybody out there watching and listening right now, Mike, who would like to maybe connect with you or maybe even continue some of the conversation that we've actually had today, what's the best way to connect with you, Mike?
I would say I'm very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to find me on there. I do postings every day, mostly motivational stuff that I started 15 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I did it when I was running dealerships, and I used to share those motivational posts with my staff, my team. So yeah, LinkedIn would be the number one resource, and then we can go from there. Communicate, send me a message, uh, ask me to connect up with you. Happy to help out anybody in the industry that wants to get better. Um, what one parting note I wanted to say when you introduced me at the beginning is I'm not smarter than anybody else out there, and this is an expression from my dad, and I give him all the accolades that he needs. I'm not smarter than anybody else out there. I've just experienced a lot, and I've made my share of mistakes, and I've made some successes, and so the stuff that I share is something that comes from experience more than being smart.
Well, and look, Mike, your willingness to share those insights with pretty much anybody and everybody is one of the things I truly do admire about you. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to come jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun. Hey, for everybody out there watching and listening, if you like this content and you like seeing more of this content, let me tell you what you can do. Share the show. That's it. That's all we're asking for. If you know somebody that would pick up a little something from this or a little something from that, we ask you to share the show. It's one of the biggest compliments you can ever give us. Mike, thank you again for taking the time to jam with me today. You have yourself an amazing day.
You too, Jason. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.